Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Type 2. I'm Tiara, and Beyond Type 2 is your go-to resource for resources on type 2 diabetes management. Whether if you're having issues with food, nutrition, exercise, mental health, or if you just need to find a community, go to beyondtype2.org to find resources for you and your loved ones to live your best life with type 2 diabetes. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest from our community, where we'll be discussing what it's like to start insulin to manage type 2 diabetes. There's so many misconceptions on using insulin, and we know that there's fear around it. Some people feel like they failed at management, but we're here to kind of bust those myths. And one of the ways we like to do that is by sharing personal stories. So I'll let my guest introduce herself. Kelly, tell the audience about you. And also, thank you for joining me today.
My name is Kelly, and I have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes since the summer of 2020. Prior to that, I actually had gestational diabetes when I was pregnant in 2014 and used insulin at that time. So although this insulin journey is new to me, I did use it for a very short time when I was pregnant back in 2014. So I'm excited to share my experience with you all today.
Thanks, Kelly. And, I'm so glad that you mentioned that you had gestational diabetes because it is really important to know that if you've had gestational diabetes, your risk for developing type 2 diabetes increases. So I think that goes to show, again, that, there are many different ways of developing type 2 diabetes that are beyond your control. I'm also glad that you mentioned that you used insulin before, but this is a new journey for you. So let's get into that. What was your journey like when you were pregnant, and how is it different now?
That's a great question. When I was pregnant, I think things moved really quickly. And I think that was the biggest difference for me in my type 2 diagnosis was during gestational, I feel like it was a matter of a week or two after I was diagnosed that they allowed me to try to get my blood sugars under control on my own before starting me on insulin. It was very quick turnaround, and I was happy to do so, right? Because I was caring for another living being. It wasn't about me at that time, and it didn't cause as much mental struggle as it did for this time around, I would say. So I only had insulin for a couple weeks before I was induced and had my baby girl. So I didn't have a ton of experience with it. It was just a few weeks. But this time around, like I said, I was diagnosed in 2020 and started several oral medications that we tried. Some didn't work. And I was really good at keeping my blood sugars were really manageable during the day. And I think that was something that made me feel powerful. I felt like I was doing a great job. But then at nighttime, it just wasn't. I could just see on my glucose meter that overnight my blood sugars would just stay high and sometimes go high and then stay high until I woke up. So my fasting blood sugar levels just weren't coming down. And it wasn't until this summer in June of 2022 that I had a few weeks where, even though I was on oral medication, my blood sugars just stayed really high. They weren't coming down. I was getting physically sick to my stomach. I was very nauseous all day. I just wasn't feeling well. And after several calls with my doctor, it was on a Friday. I remember I called and I had told her what my numbers had been. And she put me on insulin that night. She's like, I don't want you to go the weekend without it. I want you to just start it this weekend. Because you did it when you were pregnant, you probably kind of know how it goes. So she sent it to the pharmacy and off I went. I will tell you that Friday night was a struggle.
Oh, what was the long-acting insulin that she put you on?
Yeah, it's a long-acting pen that I just take at night.
Okay. Okay. And what was it like that first night, that first weekend?
Oh my goodness, Shara. I remember being so scared. I was sitting with my daughter, who's now 8, and kind of trying to explain to her why I was scared and what was happening. And I just remember sitting and just crying for a little while, right? I felt like this whole sense of just overwhelm and this sense of like, why is this happening to me right now? Why is all of a sudden do I have to do this? And it was really a struggle. It even took me, I remember just sitting there with the pen and like just not pushing the button for probably a good minute. Like I just sat there like just thinking like,
Yeah.
okay, like, is this going to hurt? What's going to happen? Like I was just super overwhelmed. But I knew after, doing research and kind of hearing from my doctor, I just had this hope that it was going to make me feel better, right? I had been so sick for those few weeks that I just felt like if this is going to do it, right, I have to, right? I have to get over myself. I have to get over this this fear that I have and just do it. And I did. And it wasn't as scary as I thought. It only
That's
took a
scary
second.
thought.
It wasn't as bad.
Yeah, I remember when I took insulin for the first time as well, and I had to give my shot myself. Like my first shot was my doctor doing it for me to show me how easy it was, and then I remember same thing like you going home and having to take it at night, and I'm like, dun, 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 like, what? Oh my god, what is it? Like, is it gonna hurt? Like, am I gonna have some sort of side effect? Because I didn't know about, in like insulin, other than the fact it's supposed to be my blood sugar down. Did you receive a lot of education around like long acting insulin and like hypoglycemia and all that great stuff when you started taking it?
No, not at the moment, right? Like I said, she put me on it over a weekend and then I had an appointment scheduled with her for the next week. So for that first week, not really. But then I did go in afterwards to the diabetes educator at my clinic, and she helped explain a little bit more and gave me a lot more information, which made me feel just even better about the decision
Yeah.
and what it was going to do for me.
Yeah. And what were your initial thoughts about like just insulin in general and in type 2 diabetes management? What had you heard? And then like how did those viewpoints change over time if they changed?
I mean, they definitely did. I think, like many of us, and like you said in our introduction, I think there's this stigma around this idea that if you need insulin, you failed, right? Like you did something wrong, that it was your fault that you needed this extra thing to make you feel better. Um, and I think I never really thought about, to be honest, I didn't really think about a lot of people with type 2 using insulin. I think a lot of my experience growing up and just folks that I know was folks with type 1 using insulin. So I don't have a lot of experience with type 2 and insulin. And to be honest, I thought that I had, if I were to need it, I thought it would be way longer, right? Not 2 years, not when I'm 37, right? Like
Yeah.
I thought I would have all of this time before I might need to add this to my regimen. But I will say that I'm so happy that I did, and my views have totally changed around kind of that fear and that stigma, and just how much better I feel after starting it six
Yeah.
months ago.
I love hearing that. And like you can tell in your voice like that, that your life has sounds like life has significantly improved of from using it. So like can you tell me more about like how your blood sugars were changing at night? Did you notice that you were sleeping better? What are some other things that you noticed after you started taking insulin?
Yeah. Definitely my blood sugars, I saw an immediate improvement. I think even that first weekend that I went on it, my fasting glucose levels were almost down to where I wanted them to be, which hadn't been the case throughout my whole diagnosis, right? I've never had blood sugar that was kind of like down at that ideal level when I woke up in the morning. So immediately I knew that it was making a difference. Within a few weeks, or probably within that first week, a lot of my nausea had gone away. I was just feeling better. I think the biggest change for me was really my energy levels. I
Yeah.
think there was a time, and I mean, some of that is probably attributed to being at home during the pandemic and things like that. But for the last 2 years, I felt like I didn't have a lot of energy, and I can definitely see a difference in kind of just my energy levels and my just kind of ability to deal with the day. I feel like I just feel
Oh, I
more
love that.
balanced throughout the day. I don't feel this intense need to control my food as much. And I think that's something that I've struggled with my whole life, even before my diagnosis, was really this idea of, really being strict with what I ate and counting my carbs and all of these things. And that was probably taking a toll on my mental health as well.
Yeah.
But now being able to use insulin and seeing that I can eat some of those things that I felt like I shouldn't before, right? Like I have more variety in my diet. I
Right.
don't feel as strict in some of those has also helped my mental health,
Yeah.
which has been great. I mean, it just feels so much different to wake up in the morning and just feel good and ready to start the day.
I that is so amazing to hear. I love that you said like you don't feel like you have to control your food as much because I think when you're not getting the right treatment, whether and this is whether if you're on insulin or not, then when you feel like you're not getting the right treatment, you feel like the margin of error is so thin when it comes to different aspects of your life. And it sounds like, this new regimen that you're on gave you an opening and gave you more freedom, which probably relieves the burden that diabetes can have on people. Um, and we know that you're active on Instagram in the community. So like how, I guess, what would you say to someone with type 2 who, maybe they've heard from their doctor they're probably going to start insulin, maybe they've also just started insulin as well. Like, and but they're nervous. They're like, yeah, maybe it's not for me, but they at some point they are going to have to start it. What would you say to kind of like alleviate those fears?
I understand the fears that people have. And like I mentioned, I had a lot of them myself. I saw that stigma. I felt myself like I had done something wrong, that I had failed. But after being in this spot for now the last 6 months and seeing what a difference that it made in my life, I would just tell people to trust the process. I think trust what your body is telling you. If your body's not responding to the changes you're making in your diet or your physical movement or your oral medications you're taking, it's okay that your body may need something else, right? And it's insulin is a natural, right? Like our body produces it. There's no shame in needing insulin and having our body need a little bit extra. And to me, it has been 100% worth it.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kelly. I really
Welcome.
appreciate you talking to us at Beyond Type 2 and talking to our community. It's stories like yours that give people so much hope because you never know who is watching this and saying, okay, I feel validated in my fears, and I feel like I can also take that step as well. Um, so Kelly, again, thank you for joining us. And thank you to everyone else in our community who has stuck by us and has followed our resources and us on social media. We really appreciate you being part of our Beyond Type 2 community. Again, please go to beyondtype2.org for any resources on insulin. And for more information, you can also reach out to our team at hello@beyondtype2.org. Thank you again for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.